Hi ladies and gentlemen. Today we are learning how to read and write decimals, and our prerequisite for this activity is writing fractions as decimals. So we have to know how to do that before we know how to read and write decimals. So in order to do this activity, we need to be able to look at this example, because looking at this example is going to help us do our problems. So I see this right here is showing 3 bars out of 10. So it says 3/10 is equivalent to 0.3 or 3/10. I see this right here shows me 45 over 100. And if I counted all these teeny tiny little squares, that would be 45 out of 100 or out of 1 whole. So coming down here to problem number 1. It says write the amount shaded as a fraction, then write the fraction as a decimal. So it's showing me 82 times 1 over 100, and that would be 82 over 100. And it's equivalent to, or I'm just going to look back at my directions and say write the fraction as a decimal, it would be 82 hundredths. I could also look over here and count it out, and that would be 82 hundredths. The next problem says, shade the model to show 5/10. Then write a fraction and a decimal to describe the amount shaded. So I'm going to get a highlighter to do this. So 5/10. Each one of these bars represents 1/10 because it's 1 bar out of 10. So I'm going to shade in 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I shaded in 5 out of 10 or 5/10. That right there is our tenths place value. Number 3 says write a fraction and a decimal to represent 17 hundredths. So 17 is going to be our numerator. Our denominator is written right here, hundredths, so that's going to be out of 100. And that looks like 0.17 or 17 hundredths. Our next page says, how many places after the decimal point does the equivalent decimal have if the denominator of a fraction is 10? So if a denominator of a fraction is 10, how many numbers is to the right of the decimal point? And that's going to be just 1. If the denominator of the fraction is 100, how many numbers to the right of the decimal point are there? There are 2. Number 5 says, look at your answer to problem number 4. Explain the reasoning you used to find the answers. So the way I think about this is, if the denominator of a fraction is 10, the fraction is an amount in tenths. So I'm going to put A, the denominator is 10. So the place value is tenths. For letter B, the denominator is 100. So the place value is hundredths. Okay, number 6. Shade the model to show 4 hundredths. Then write a fraction and a decimal to describe the amount shaded. Okay, so we have 100 teeny tiny little boxes here, and we need to shade 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've shaded in 4 hundredths or 4 hundredths. So right there, my 4 is in the hundredths place value. Okay. Number 7 says choose either yes or no to tell if the expression or number represents 7 hundredths. So A says 7 times 1/10. Well, that's going to be a no, because that would represent 7 tenths. B says 7 times 1/100. That's yes. That represents 7 hundredths. Another way you could write that is by saying 7/100. Okay, the next one, C, is 0.70. That's a no. That's 70 hundredths. That's not the same thing. Last but not least, letter D says 0.07. Another way to read that is 7 hundredths. So yes. And number 8, explain how using a model can help you write a fraction with a denominator of 10 or 100 as a decimal. The way I like to think about this is if you use a model, like place value blocks, for instance, that can be used to show both fractions and decimals, you can find or first shade the model to show the fractional amount. Then you can think about what decimal amount the model shows and then write the decimal. So how I would write that, let's see. Hope that helped everybody.